Okay, look here who we have. We have Lindell John Kay with us this morning. Welcome.
How you doing? It's been too long.
Good. It has been too long. We've got to have you on more often. Lindell, you know, your name has been mentioned several times lately in appreciation for some articles that you have done in the Rocky Mountain Telegram. How many days in a row? How many articles? How many
I don't know, we're like on 11 or 12 now, I think. Journalists
are amazing to me, how they can spit out an article so fast, you know, and do it so well, and I really do think you do very well with your articles. But how did this come about? Why the first article?
Well, on December 31st, the newspaper ran an article about just a year in review of Rocky Mountain, and I included in there one sentence that said that that a certain police captain was the chosen favorite of local law enforcement for the police chief's job. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that drew the ire of the city manager,
right?
And she demanded a retraction, and we refused to, and you know, so my publisher, my editor said, you know, go ahead and look at a story and explain, you know, what that situation is. And that story led to, you know, once we published that story, I was just inundated with city employees, former city employees, people who had been looking for an opportunity to say what they feel like or what they thought is going on at City Hall. And so it's, you know, I get a lot of credit for like digging things up and everything, but to be honest, in this situation, it's just falling into my lap over and over again. And every day it's like, okay, well, you know, we're done. What's the next subject? But it's a story that grows.
Yeah, it just keeps unfolding, doesn't
it? It sure
like
does.
Dominoes, it just keeps on unfolding.
Well, I had a district attorney one time tell me that he said that a case he was working on had more twists and turns than a ride at the state fair. And I think that's yeah, I think that's attributable here.
Right.
Before we go on with the details of this story, and there's a lot of details to talk about in this story, I just wanted to say something really quick, if that's all right.
That's all right.
In the last week or so, I've been accused of being a racist, or you know, because I'm writing about a city manager who happens to be a black woman.
Right.
And I mean, that's offensive to me on a personal level, but it's really offensive to me on a professional level, because if before someone would say something like that about me, they really need to look at my body of work over the last 20 years,
right?
Especially the last 5 years here in Rocky Mountain.
Right.
Because last year I wrote about a town manager in Nashville who wouldn't let a family bury their mother next to their father because they didn't have the right piece of paper.
We talked about that earlier in the show.
Yes, ma'am.
It's ironic.
And also, I mean, he mistreated an employee to the point that she tried to commit suicide.
Right.
I wrote about that town manager. He was white.
Right.
He's been fired. Okay, so I've written a lot of stories. I write about everybody. I wrote about Robbie Davis when the school system sued him because they said that he can't build a school that doesn't leak.
Right.
I wrote about Robbie again when he bought the television station.
Right.
I told him I was going to say that on the air. I don't think he believed me. I wrote about Councilman Knight when he bought land down by the event center.
Right.
Right. That at the church that everybody knows about. But there's a lot of other land he bought down there that I've written about as well. This Sunday we have a story in the paper about a white teacher in the Nash Rocky Mountain school system who assaulted a black student, and that teacher's going on trial next week. You know, we're writing about that. I'm the first person in 5 years to write about the missing and murdered black women from Rocky Mountain that have just seemed to be forgotten about by everybody. I wrote about the mayor when he got in trouble with his real estate dealings, right?
Right.
And I think about this, right about this time, a good friend of mine, Nehemiah Smith, would throw in, well, Fred Turnage, he would do stuff like that too. Well, like I told Nehemiah, and I'll tell everybody listening, I wasn't here when Fred Turnage was mayor, and if I was, I'd write about Fred Turnage too.
Right.
So I write about everybody, you know. So just because Rochelle Small-Toney happens to be a black woman has no bearing on what I'm doing.
Well, wrong is wrong.
Wrong is wrong.
Whether they're black, white, or purple.
And even if it had been done by people in the past in similar positions before,
right,
wrong is still wrong.
That's right.
And what we have, as we've shown in the last several days in the newspaper, we have a city manager who has a proclivity for hiring her friends, whether they're qualified or not, and oftentimes those friends cost the city a lot of money.
Does this not mirror Savannah?
Absolutely. I mean, it's weird in the way how much it does mirror Savannah. We
Exactly.
we got hold of a reprimand letter that she received in Savannah in 2012, and I looked at what's happened here and what's happened there, and that letter, I think I said that in a story earlier this week, that letter could have been written here now.
Yeah.
It's you know, it's not only is it the same situations, it's the same people. Dr. Falcone, who is a friend of the city managers, they seem to run in the same circles wherever they go. They end up together, and Dr. Falcone she's receiving $120,000 a year, which is more than any community developer in Rocky Mount has ever gotten. But not only is that a lot of money for pay, if she was doing a great job, it might be worth it. But so far, all we've seen is that grant after grant after grant is not being done, and the federal government, where Rocky Mount used to be, in, you know, we're talking 2-3 years ago, Rocky Mount was the favorite of the federal government. We were getting grants. You know, we were being revitalization was going on. I think we showed in the paper that there were permits. I think there were 29-30 permits 2 years ago, and then last year there were practically none. And the reason all that's going on is because the paperwork's not getting done. I mean, Dr. Falcone lives in Virginia Beach.
Right.
She may stay with friends in Littleton and commute here sometimes, but her legal residence.
Yeah, she does not reside. She does not have legal residence here.
Not only in Rocky Mount, but in the state of North Carolina, and that has not been refuted yet. City Hall has not said no, that's not true. This is her address. This is where she lives. So she lives in Virginia. How can you develop downtown? She's the community and business developer.
Right.
How can you develop a community that you don't even live in?
Absolutely. Well, Lindell, so, and while we're talking about her, we'll stay on her right now, focus on Ms. Falcone. So also, go back to the grants. You were just talking about the grants. So she did not turn in paperwork and cost the taxpayers, right, $182,087, whatever it is, $182,000.
Right, and the claim is that, oh, well, that was the people who worked here before. But when you take over a position, you assume all those responsibilities.
That's right. It's yours.
So the paperwork wasn't completed, and not only that, because of that, Nash County has removed itself from the Down East Home Consortium, which, I mean, the organization that they've been a part of longer than I've been here. You know, I talked to the Tarboro town manager yesterday. There's money that they're supposed to be receiving from Rocky Mount that Rocky Mount won't answer them where it's at, won't give it to them. So Tarboro is considering pulling out of that.
Well, I talked to many downtown people recently, and they said, matter of fact, 2 of them called me, and they said, Sandra, we don't see her. John Gesso was all about town, you know, walking,
right,
you know, coming to see him. They
yes,
said, we don't see her at all.
Well, she's probably in Virginia Beach. She might be developing, downtown Virginia Beach, but no, she's not here in the community. She has Virginia plates,
right.
She's a Virginia resident. There's no way around that.
Right.
And downtown development has suffered. I mean, when I got here in 2005, 14. And Rocky Mount was the city on the rise. It was the, I mean, there was so much going on. You know, they were talking about the Monk to Mills Trail. You know, they were talking about all these things that were going to happen. And it was really touted as a place to come and live and do business and all of that. When Dr. Falcone got here, she threw all those people out. She forced them out. We've got a letter of resignation that will be running in the paper on Monday from a person in her department. The hostile working environment is just unfathomable. And so
Unreal.
You take the people that have had HUD training, you take the people that have had experience doing this, and you move them out to put in people that you know a prior. And again, there's nothing wrong with hiring a friend. I mean, if you're in charge and you've got someone that you know and they can do a good job of it, there's absolutely nothing wrong with
yeah, because this is a, you know, kind of a, let me go on record saying that when you're a manager, you are allowed to get people in that you trust and are loyal to you and your team. You have to build your team to be successful in your endeavor because you're held accountable and you want people around you.
But that team should be capable.
Right. Capable is the word.
Right. And so the definition of cronyism is hiring friends over qualified people.
Right.
So it's a pattern. It was a pattern for Small Tony in Savannah. It was a pattern before that, and it's a pattern here where the local police department, all those qualified officers in the local police department, Marty Clay, George Robinson, I mean the list goes on and on, they're overlooked for a candidate that she prefers, that she has had from previous you know, relationships.
Right.
She brought in a Parks and Rec director for $130,000, $40,000 more than the last guy, $40,000 more than he's making as the town manager in Selma.
Right.
And he has literally no Parks and Rec experience. Now, I'm not knocking the guy. I mean, he could do a bang up job.
Yeah, but $40,000.
Well, yeah,
that's
exactly.
a bit much.
Right. I mean, I'm not knocking the man at all. I mean, he might be very good at it, but the problem is that when you have, I mean, it's really hard to beat around the bush at this point. Rochelle Small Tony just likes to hire people that, I mean, she likes to hire her friends. And whether they can do the job or not seems to be irrelevant.
Right.
And then who ends up suffering is Rocky Mount, because we were on track. I think it was, I can't remember if it was in today's paper or yesterday's paper. They all start to run together now. But we were on track to get a $12 million grant from the Department of Transportation to build that Monk to Mills Trail. I've talked to so many people that used to work for the city, that still work for the city. Talked to federal, I went to the house of a federal employee, because you know they're all at home right now because of the shutdown.
Right.
The federal government is just not going to give us any money right now when we have a turnover in the departments.
Right.
You know, a complete turnover in the departments, which was also a concern in Savannah.
We're not stable right now.
Exactly.
We're not stable.
We're really not. And so, $12,000 grant that nobody gets the first time. We scored really high on the second time and was a shoe-in this time.
Right.
But as soon as they came down and they saw some things going on, all of a sudden we don't get it. And it's now what happens to the Monk to Mills Trail? I mean, I don't know. I mean, you know, it's like the $182,000 the city taxpayers had to swallow that. I don't think we can't swallow $12 million.
We can't swallow 12. Oh no.
You know, so what happens? It's a mess, and you know, I think like Stephanie, I'm going to slaughter her last name, Hawthorne, the Main Street blogger. She was saying in the story today, I mean, how did Rochelle Small Tony get hired in the first place? Why?
Can we take a call?
Sure.
Okay. Good morning. Hello. Good morning.
Good morning. So I have a great question for our great journalist here. you know, these stories have brought
Don't
to light
swell
a lot
his
of
head too much.
Yeah, I appreciate
But
that.
it's a great series of stories. But, you know, there are those out there who will say, this is giving Rocky Mount a black eye. This is making us the center of negativity and controversy. And so for those who are outside of Rocky Mount, you know, they look at us and they're seeing all this drama that's happening here. And there's folks in the business community who are a little angry that all this is given so much spotlight. You know, as a journalist and a newspaper, what do you say to those who, you know, wish you would put this on page 3 instead of page 1?
Good question.
Yeah, it actually is. I think that sunlight is the best disinfectant, and I think that I would be remiss. I wouldn't be doing my job and my responsibility to the community if we put this on page 3. This is a story that affects taxpayers. It affects those businesses, because if we want to, you know, I try to be objective in the things that I say, and probably gone too far already today, but you can't, if you want to do those things that you're talking about and you want businesses to thrive here and all that stuff, there has to be an environment where they can do that. And we had that environment and we don't have it now. So the question is, do we pretend that things are great, or do we address the problem head on and then move on from there?
Right.
Well, and that brings up the next great question, and I know you can't answer this necessarily, but I think that's one that the city council has to consider. If they remove Small Tony next week, and they, you know, they take out what created the issue, the damage has been done. We've lost the talent, we've lost the department heads, we've lost our reputation. The HUD and the Fed has already looked down on us. How do we repair what's been done? Because you can't go back and bring back in those people necessarily. They've already got new jobs.
That's a great question. I mean that is the question of the day, because
yeah,
you have to, you know, I don't really know, but I mean they would have to do what they did before, and that is they found people like Kelly Ann Davis and Mrs. Norwood and people like that who did a great job in downtown. So they're just going to have to find those people again.
Okay.
To me, that speaks to the devastation that's been wrought on by our mismanagement of the city. It's not just that we've lost talent. This is long-term, years worth of rebuilding that we're going to have to go through. So I appreciate what you've been doing on this. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Thanks for the questions.
Bye-bye. Okay, when we come back, let's go ahead and talk about, let's go into the repairs being done to the office of the city manager.
Sure.
Okay, we'll be right back. Okay, for those of you that just tuned in, we have Lindell John Kay from the Rocky Mount Telegram here this morning to talk about a series of articles that he has been reporting on the city for the last, it seems like a month. But anyway, it's just going on. The story just goes on and on.
For 5 years. I put on my good shirt too. My wife picked the shirt
well,
out.
We're proud of you.
Yeah.
We're proud of you. Yeah, remember, it's not radio. On TV, you have to wear socks, and you have to.
Well, I have a face made for newspapers. And that picture you used of me on Facebook, where in the world did you dig that thing?
We'll never tell. We'll never tell. Anyway.
I had hair back then.
You did. But anyway, let's segue into now, continuing with Miss.
Segue to segue.
Not segue to segue. Okay, well, let's go into now. No, you can't.
I'm messing with you.
I know.
I'm going to trip you up.
I know you are. But anyway, let's go in. We're talking about Rochelle Small Tony right now, so while we're talking about her, let's talk about the repairs done to the city manager's office, the city manager's suite, because it's just not her office. Right. It's the suite.
Right. Yeah,
okay.
There's her office, the reception area, some other office.
Yes.
But I mean, just like in Savannah, where she wanted to make some upgrades. Mm-hmm. You know, she's having work done right now. I mean, it's going on the weekends. You know, that's because, I guess, because no one's there on the weekends.
Right.
I don't mean to imply anything clandestine there, but the work's going on every weekend, and they're remodeling, they're putting in ceiling tiles, carpets. I noticed in the work orders that the carpet is called Platinum Series. Now, I don't know much about carpet, but anytime that something's called platinum,
hey, it's on up there.
Exactly, it's not your normal indoor outdoor carpet that you get. I've also asked for invoices for the furniture that's been put in the office. I have not received it. I asked for that several days ago.
Now, in a press release, they just came back in a press release, I believe, and said this was not. First, they said, I believe you said that Charles Penny had bought the furniture and she had already replaced it.
Right.
Then they came back in a press release and said not.
Right. Well, see, the thing about that is how will we know when they won't give me the information, the public information that I've asked for? I mean, I've asked for the invoices for this furniture, to, just to get an idea of what kind of furniture we're talking about.
Right.
But they haven't answered that. And the thing about the work that's being done is very similar to back to Dr. Falcone. When she got here, she didn't like the offices that were available to her, so she took over a conference room, and she had that redone for a pretty hefty price. So I mean, it's just a laissez-faire attitude with taxpayer dollars.
Right.
Right. So I asked them about this information. They gave me the work invoices for DJ Rose and Sons. They gave them to me. Tamika Norman, Keenan Norman has been, I think, extremely diligent in providing the information that I've asked for.
And she's the communication director for the city.
Yes, I mean, right up until a few days ago, I mean, she answered everything that I'd asked for. But then they said on Saturday that the work being done was because of mold. Well, that is something that is very easy to find out. I mean, you can't just do mold work. You have to have training. You have to have certifications. Right. You have to have I mean, all kinds of things involved. So I went back and I said, well, provide me the information that proves that it was mold, and they couldn't. So then I contacted Dylan Rose, and he said no, there was no mold in the building. We were doing the remodeling and we found a little tiny patch of mildew.
Right.
So we had that removed. We cut it out and had it removed. But I mean, he's not doing any mold remediation.
Well, now there is a big difference between mold and mildew.
Sure. And now in the most recent thing, they're calling it fungus. So I don't know. It's a ever evolving substance. But the thing is that then they said it was FEMA work. Well, if it's FEMA work, provide that information, the grants, the paperwork. I mean, show us. Plus, it was, I mean, the fifth floor office. I mean, the fifth floor hallway, I believe, is what they say was the most damaged or whatever. Why do the office suites before the hallway? Supposedly they're going to do the hallway later. They cut that out of the work. It was $40,000 that they decided to do later. I mean, maybe there's a perfectly good explanation for all this.
And what was the price tag on this contract?
$89,000.
God.
Well, yeah. I mean, my house probably doesn't cost that much.
I was going to say, Lindell, you could build a house for that.
Yeah, you could. And the original contracts that were coming in were 140, 130. So it's
Now, the city council said they were not aware of this. Do you believe that?
Yeah, I do, because it's exactly what happened in Savannah.
Right. That's what I was going to say.
Exactly what happened in Savannah. Is the city council was not aware of work that she had requested. I don't think that she got to do the work in Savannah. I think they found out before, but she had set the money aside for it. She was, that the work was going to happen. And here they just got a little further along. But no, I talked to 3, I think I said in the newspaper 3, but I mean, by this time I've talked to more. But when I told one councilman that this was being done, he didn't believe it. he couldn't believe it. He was like, no, that can't be true. And I'm like,
wow.
no, it's true. And he's like, no, I don't think that would happen without us knowing about it. And then he came back a few minutes later and said, after a phone call or two, he came back and said, you know what, you're right, that is going on, and we don't know about it.
Wow. Well, now the mayor's office is next door to there.
Yeah.
So how do you not know? But anyway, I guess she did it in Savannah. So she, again, it mirrors the same. It's the same thing that happened in Savannah, and I don't know about Petersburg. I don't know about Fayetteville, but
well, what I do know about Petersburg and Fayetteville is she didn't get the job in Petersburg because taxpayers there
that's right.
paid
She
attention
didn't.
to Savannah.
That's right.
But you know who worked in Petersburg was Dr. Falcone. So it's like I said, it's a circle.
They sure do follow.
Right. It's a pattern, and the taxpayers in Rocky Mount are the ones left holding the bag.
Wow. Well, the whole thing. I want you to explain, Lindell, to the public, because a lot of them, they're not involved in media, so they wouldn't have any reason to understand this. Public records law. Because people are probably asking, well, how did he get all of these things? Because I know they didn't readily turn them over. So tell people what this entails.
Well, this is a great opportunity for me to say, people always use the word FOIA. They love to say FOIA. Do a FOIA request on that. Do a FOIA. FOIA request, it stands for Freedom of Information Act. That is only applicable to the federal government.
Right.
You can't FOIA a town council or a town government because that only applies to the federal government. But what we have in North Carolina is public records laws.
Right.
North Carolina General Statute 132 says that there's certain records that are public and there's certain records that are not. And as a member of as a newspaper man, I don't have any more right to ask for that than anybody else does. And sometimes people assume that I have like some sort of inside track or some sort of ability to get things. Maybe I know how to get them, through experience. But anybody can walk in off the street and ask for certain public records. And by law, the government entity, whether it be county, city, whatever, by law they have to comply. And they have a certain amount of time, a reasonable amount of time. North Carolina's a little vague on what the reasonable amount of time is, so sometimes there's some play there. But honestly,
because it does involve taxpayer money. Sure,
absolutely. Well, the city, I will say that the city communications department, which is Tamika and Jesse and some few other people that I don't really know their names off the top of my head, but they know when they provide me information that information is going to be used in a story that may not put the city in the best light.
Right.
However, they have provided it.
Right.
I can't complain at all about what Tamika has provided. She has done a good job. Now there's some things, I think we have a story on Saturday that lists some things that I've asked for that I haven't gotten.
Right.
But some things take time. I think some things take longer than maybe they should. But
sure.
I want what I want. I'm like a little baby.
That's right.
But I can't complain about that. And it has to kind of hurt a little bit to give me that information, knowing what it's going to be used for, but they do it, and I think overall, the Rocky Mount's full of great people. The City Hall is full of great people. The police department, the fire department, they're all great people. I think it's evident in the outpouring of people that have contacted me, that have risked their jobs. They've risked their livelihood. They've risked their good standing with to tell me that you need to look at this because this is wrong. You need to write about this. So it's just been a watershed moment in the last few weeks where I think, like Steph, I don't know if it made it in that story or not. Sometimes I forget what not everything. You only have so much room.
Right.
But Stephanie was talking about how. This is the moment for people to speak up. You know, this is
Right.
right now is the time for employees to come forward. And looking ahead, like I think I may have mentioned this earlier, we have a copy of a resignation letter that a former employee has given us, and it was submitted to the city council. It was submitted to her boss, which would be Dr. Falcone, and it just really explains how terrible
Morale.
how terrible it was to a living hell to work in that department.
Wow.
At that time. So we'll be doing that. I believe that'll come out Monday. I don't always have control. Some of these things, you know,
Right.
I mean, things space-wise, I mean, there's always these things. But anyway, that story's forthcoming. We have you know, ironically, the city's talking about mold at City Hall. You know, they're telling me that there's mold at City Hall. Well, ironically, there is mold down on the Douglas block, and there's a lawsuit right now where a tenant down on the Douglas block is countersuing the city because they won't fix the mold problem, and he don't want to pay the rent because they won't fix the mold problem. So it's a little comical to me that they're pretending there's mold at City Hall, meanwhile there's actually mold downtown, and according to this countersuit, they won't fix it.
So these are some things that we have to look forward to that are coming up.
Yes.
Which was the next question I was going to ask. So you just answered that. Very good.
Well, you mentioned it during the break, remember?
Yes, I did, and I said we're going to talk about some things, tease some things coming up.
I'm gonna get you off your off what you're doing here.
I know you are.
That's what I like to do.
But I know you mean. We've had a lot of calls coming in, but I want to make sure that Lindell got his time this morning because I know all of you are wanting to hear what he has to say. What do you think is going to happen Monday night? What do we predict? Do we wait and see?
I honestly don't know, and
okay.
and I'm not an advocate. You know, I don't wish to see Rochelle terminated. I don't wish to see her stay. I try to tell the facts as I know them. I don't always get it right. I get it wrong sometimes, but I'm quick to correct, you know, what I get wrong. But I just want the people to have as much information as they possibly can for these decisions to be made. And I think it was great to see all these folks show up last Monday night. I hope a lot of people show up this Monday night. There was one comment that was made. Someone said, you know, if this amount of people were here all the time,
I said that too.
We wouldn't have as many problems as we have.
That's exactly right. You know, there's power in numbers, Lindell.
Sure.
And when they looked out there, when they walked out and saw all those people, there had to be, you know, in their mind.
Not only in the room, but in the hallway.
They were all the way down the hall to the lobby area. And some were even in that little side room. So, you know, I don't even know how many people attended. How many seats is there in that place?
Oh, I know you. You're going to throw me off. I don't know the exact number, but I think, I mean, WRL was saying 300 people.
Okay.
So I mean, you know, I said packed house. You know, sometimes in journalism, if you don't know the exact number, it's best to be vague, right? You know, so I mean, it was about 300 people is a good estimate, and that's the most I've ever seen.
Oh yeah, I think this was. I mean, I couldn't believe it. One of the biggest deals we've ever had here. I mean, it really is. So, but I have encouraged people every day on this show that I'm on to please come to the city council members, to the city council meetings, be involved, know what's going on. You know, there's power in numbers, and we can change things if everybody will just get involved and stay involved. So I was glad, Lindell, to see that, and I think we're going to see it again this Monday. And I said, I want to correct something. I said this Monday night. It is not night. 3 o'clock. Okay, so tell us what's going to happen. 3 o'clock is meeting of the whole, but it's going to be closed session.
Right. For personnel matters, they'll talk about Miss Maltoni there. And then they have a 4 o'clock meeting that they will stop to come into. I believe they'll stop to come into that 4 o'clock
I was going to say meeting. Now, they can't go but an hour then. We had to sit 2.5 hours before. But this time, we're not going to...
we're both, they're calling us both.
They're calling us both.
No, yeah, that 4 o'clock meeting is set. So maybe they come to the 4 o'clock meeting and say, we're going into closed session. I mean, I don't know. But I mean, that 4 o'clock meeting will happen at 4 o'clock. And as a part of that... as a part of that meeting, there's a public comment section. you know, I think a lot of people showed up last week thinking that they were going to be able to say something, but I mean, the mayor was right. That was not not the proper time to do that. But at 4 o'clock on Monday, or at some point during that meeting that starts at 4 o'clock, there will be a time for public comment.
Yeah, and this could go on and on and on and on and on.
You get 3 minutes apiece. So
that's right, and it could be a lot of people talking. So, but this is a regularly scheduled meeting at 4 o'clock, so you can have public comment. Just sign up. You have to sign up at any government public meeting. You got to sign up. So, anyway, well, Lindell, thank you for being on this morning. You have really given us a lot of good information. Hope to have you back as this unfolds more. Maybe after Monday, maybe we'll have you on again to see what's going to happen in the future. Thank you for the hard work you've done on this case and the hard work you always do in bringing us good stories. So anyway, thank you so much.
You bet.
All right. And we're sorry we couldn't take all these calls. We've had 5 or 6 calls coming in. When he comes back, we'll just have to drill him. So anyway, we'll let you call in next time. So anyway, have a great day, everybody. Make it a great day. And be careful out there in the rain. It's very slick and could be some hydroplaning going on. So be very safe today.